Okay, so let's talk about expanding brackets. You're having a party this weekend and you're going to set up some buckets of Coke and ice at each table. Should be an interesting party. And so what we could do is we could use some algebra to help us work out how much Coke and ice we need for the party. So each bucket, as you can see here in the picture, has 3 lots of Coke and it has some ice. Now, that's just for one bucket, but we can have a couple more buckets because this is going to be a great party. And so each bucket has 3 lots of Coke and ice. So we could go ahead and add all of that up, 3 plus 3 plus 3, and add all the ice together. But another way of writing all of that would be to say we have 3 lots of Coke and ice. And obviously each bucket has 3 Cokes in it. So this here that we've written is telling us that we have 3 different buckets and each bucket has some Coke and ice in it. So expanding brackets is just that. It's where we have some stuff together in a bracket and then the number outside is telling us how many of that we actually have. So let's look at an example together. If we had something like 2 outside of a plus 5, this is telling us that actually we have 2 lots of a plus 5. So you could think of it like this: a plus 5 plus another a plus 5. We've got 2 lots of it. And so if we were to add up everything in there together, we could remove the brackets if that just makes it easier to think about. And so we've got a plus a, so that's 2 lots of a, and then we've got 5 plus 5, so that is 10. So we've got 2a plus 10. Now, the quick way to get there is to, rather than going through that process of expanding and collecting everything together, if we just take this 2 at the start and multiply it by both of the things inside the bracket. So we have 2 lots of a, there's our 2a, we have 2 lots of 5, and so that gives us 10. Let's have a look at another example. So let's have a look at 8 outside of a minus 2. So let's just jump straight into expanding it. So we know that we have 8 lots of this bracket here. There's 8 lots of a minus 2. So if we were to line all of that up, we would have 8 lots of a, so that would be 8a, and we would also have 8 lots of, and you've got to be careful here because this minus is actually part of the 2. So we have 8 lots of negative 2, and so that is negative 16. So we end up with 8a minus 16 as our answer. Okay, let's do another one. We've got a outside of a plus 3. So I guess this time it's a little bit harder to visualise because we can't sort of imagine a certain number of this bracket. Like, all we know is that there are a amounts of this bracket, but we just follow the same process still. So we're going to go a times a. Now anything times itself we can write as an indice. So a times a would be a squared. And then if we go a times positive 3, then we get 3a. So we get a squared plus 3a. So we're still following the same process. Let's try one slightly trickier. So this time we're going to have 3a outside of a squared minus 4b. So you've got to be good at your multiplying algebra here to be able to do this. So it's worth going and revising that if that's something you're struggling with. But let's have a look at the first one here. So the first thing we need to do here is we need to multiply this 3a by the a squared. Now whenever you're multiplying algebraic terms, always do the numbers first. So in this case we've got a 3 and there's really an invisible 1 here next to the a, so we've got 3 times 1 is 3, and then we can multiply the variable part, so we're going to multiply the a's. So a times a squared, that gives us a to the power of 3. Now we can multiply the 3a by the second part of what was in the bracket. And again, just remembering that this minus is attached to that 4b. So we're going to do the numbers again first. So we're going to go 3 multiplied by minus 4. So a positive times a negative equals a negative. So we're going to end up with negative. 3 times 4 is 12. And then we multiply the letters. So a times b. We just write that as ab. So we get 3a cubed minus 12ab. Let's do one last one. Let's do minus 2x squared y outside of 4x minus 3y. And we might write this one down below so we don't squash ourselves up. So again, I know this looks really ugly and there's lots of different parts to it, but you just need to break it down to step by step, not be overwhelmed by the total problem. And if you just follow the process, we should end up at the right answer. So again, we're starting off by using this term outside, and we're going to multiply that with the 4x. So we can start by multiplying the numbers together. So minus 2 times 4, minus and a positive makes a negative. So minus 2 times 4 is negative 8. Then we can multiply any variables that are the same. So x squared and x gives us x cubed. Now the y here, there's nothing in that first term. There's no other y's. So we just tack that y onto the end, and that finishes it off. So now we can move on to doing the second part. So we're going to multiply all of this by the second part of the bracket, which is minus 3y. So this time we have a minus and a minus, so two negatives make a positive. And so if we've got negative 2 times negative 3, then that is positive 6. Look at the x's, there's an x squared there, there's no x's in this term over here, so that x squared just stays as it is. And then with the y's, we've got y times y, so that gives us y squared as the answer. So it was more complicated, that one, but we're still following the same steps. We multiply what's outside by both of the things inside, and then we just follow the steps for multiplying algebraic terms.